Hey guys, I want to quickly give you a tour of the 4 paid apps that I use. I thought it would be helpful for you, especially if your portfolio is beginning to grow. It's important to understand what information is out there and how to best utilize your time. So I thought I would give you a tour of the 4 paid apps that I use: Simply Safe Dividends, FastGraphs, Morningstar, and Seeking Alpha. Plus, I'm going to give you a little bonus for a free app that I use every quarter as earnings are coming out. It's called QUARTR, QUARTR. There's no E in it. It is a really cool app. It's free. I'm going to give you a demo of that as well. And then next, we had a great week in the market this week. I want to talk about the portfolio, how it's moved, and where it's moved. So if you want to see all of that, stay tuned. Hey, welcome back, guys. This week I want to talk about 4 paid apps that I use. I use Simply Safe Dividends, FastGraphs, Morningstar, and Seeking Alpha. Those 4 apps are the ones that I pay for every year, and I use them almost every day as I'm looking at stocks, researching stocks. Then in addition to that, I use one on a quarterly basis when the earnings calls are coming around that is actually a free app. So I want to demo that one for you as well. And then this market this week was crazy, right? It went up, the S&P went up 4%. So we had some movement upward in the portfolio. I want to talk with you about that and show you where the portfolio ended up. So with that, let's get started. Now, again, none of these apps are sponsoring anything in this video. I'm just sharing with you the apps that I use and the apps that I pay for every year. So let's start with the first application that I use. It's called Simply Safe Dividends. I'm going to start each one of these using Texas Instruments so that you can see consistency around the information that's provided. But Texas Instruments and Simply Safe Dividends, I wanted to show you that, first of all, I like this dividend safety score. This dividend safety score is a proprietary score that's developed by Simply Safe Dividends, and it helps compare the safety, the relative safety of dividends from individual companies. So that's a nice feature to have. The second thing that I would show you is that they have a write-up about each company. So you can see that there's information there. And also they will have notes. And these notes are long analyses that are done on the particular companies. So this is really, really cool information to have. It is definitely worthwhile from my perspective. Now back to the main screen for this company, Texas Instruments, you see that they have some key metrics here, and these are really helpful to have. They have a dividend growth section. They'll show you what the dividend growth has looked like over, let's say, the last 20 years. There's some interesting details that they share about the payout of the dividend. They have a timeliness feature where they look at the dividend yield over time and also the forward PE ratio over time and determine whether they would recommend whether the stock is overvalued, fairly valued, or undervalued. They're considering Texas Instruments to be undervalued at the moment. Now, moving on, they have some significant financial metrics. You can see the earnings payout ratio, free cash flow payout ratio, earnings per share, free cash flow per share. There are just tons of good financial metrics in here. There's a return on invested capital, which is one of my favorites. So you can just see that there are a lot of good financial metrics in there. But one of the key features for me for Simply Safe Dividends is their portfolio management. So if you look here, I have it says my portfolio, but I have a dividend growth portfolio, a dividend income portfolio, and a dividend snowball portfolio. The cool thing about Simply Safe Dividends is I can look at each of these individual portfolios, but it also allows me to see the portfolio overall in aggregate. So for instance, I have Whirlpool in both the dividend growth portfolio as well as the dividend income portfolio. When I click on my portfolio, it's going to show me Whirlpool overall. It's going to add together the shares that are in all of my accounts. And the reason I find that important is it gives me a better sense for what percentage of my total portfolio that Whirlpool makes up. And it also helps me with diversification. When I'm looking at diversification of my overall portfolio, this portfolio management tool really is helpful for me. But you can see it also gives me some really cool information, what the annual income is, the dividend yield, the yield on cost, what the last 5 years of dividend CAGR are, the diversification. It shows me the income calendar that's coming up, and it shows me which stocks are going to be paying dividends and how much that's going to be, which is sometimes very helpful when I'm looking for dividends to come in. There's an income forecasting tool as well. So a lot of good portfolio management information here inside of Simply Safe Dividends. A couple of other cool things is it has a screener. So I can come into this screener. It allows me to select multiple criteria. So for instance, if I click on this, I can select any of these criteria, determine what values I want them to have, and then it pops out the matches that it has for me for those criteria. And then also I can sort this. If I want the highest yielding stock out of these, then Harris Pinnacle West, 3M, OGE Energy, UGI. If I want the safest dividend, I can sort on that. So Medtronic, UGI, Tyson, Snap-on, Procter & Gamble, Merck. There's several 99s in this list. So those are safe dividends. If I wanted to look at the highest dividend CAGR, it would tell me that Tyson Foods is 24%, Home Depot is 18%, Snap-on is 15%. So this screener inside this tool, I find to be very user-friendly, and it provides some really good information. So now let's move on to FastGraphs. FastGraphs is the number 2 app that I like to use. You can see here it is very visual. I love the visual aspect of this app. There's a lot of things in this chart. So for instance, if you look at the black line is the price of the stock. So you can see the movement of the price of the stock over the last 20 years. I can shrink this down if I want to. Let's say the last 7 years. It would give me a different picture, a different look. But for now, let's keep it out at max. The red line is the yield of the stock in those particular years. So you can see how the yield has performed. The blue line is what the historical PE ratio has been for the stock. And this orange line is what it considers to be the optimum. So in this case, it's 20.47 times earnings. It also shows you the payout ratio. This white line here is the payout ratio compared to the earnings. And so you can tell whether a stock is, paying out too much of their stock. So it's very visual. There's a lot of other things that it can do. It can look at performance, and it shows you what the performance has been compared to the S&P 500 over a certain time period. It'll tell you, it'll talk about forecasting and what the forecast looks like based on the best known information at the time, and it'll tell you what the analysts how well they've performed or not. There's some other functions in here that I don't use much. There's their financials, and there's a screener in here as well that I do use from time to time, so that it's very helpful. It's got different criteria than what's in Simply Safe Dividends, so that to me is a helpful tool. I can manage portfolios on here as well. So you can see I have a dividend growth, dividend income, dividend snowball portfolio in here. And what that will do, let me move back to Texas Instruments. What that'll do is it'll show you these green dots. These green dots are when I bought Texas Instruments. You can see these green dots at the bottom at a zero cost. Those are the reinvested dividends. If you see a red dot, that means I sold it. And in the case of Texas Instruments, I have not sold any of the shares that I bought there. So I love FastGraphs because it is visual and it has tons of information all on the screen at the same time. So let's move on to Morningstar. This is the number 3 app that I use, 3 out of 4. And again, I have Texas Instruments pulled up here. The thing that I really like about Morningstar is a couple of things really. One is that it gives a fair value calculation. And this fair value calculation, as long as it doesn't have a Q out by the name here, is a real fair value calculation done by analysts. And in this particular case, they're saying the fair value is 158. It closed at 161. But the second piece that I like about Morningstar is not only do they give you the number, but they also give you the full write-up. So you can see that there's an analyst note here. He talks about the business strategy and outlook. He talks about their moat, which is their strategic competitive advantage. He talks about their fair value and profit drivers, as well as risks and uncertainties, and then finishes off with capital allocation. So a lot of good information on this Morningstar website. That's why I like it so much. Now let's move on to the fourth and final paid app that I use, and that is Seeking Alpha. I have my portfolios in Seeking Alpha. You can see that I have dividend growth, dividend income, dividend snowball. So it keeps track of the individual portfolios. The part that I wish they would fix in Seeking Alpha is all portfolios basically gives me all of the individual portfolios. Simply Safe Dividends will consolidate the 3 portfolios together into one big portfolio. Seeking Alpha will only show me the individual accounts. But then pulling up Texas Instruments and Seeking Alpha, it gives some good data around what the stock price has moved. It's got some good historical financial data. You can see that, this is the income statement. They've got the balance sheet information here. And so there's a lot of good detailed information that goes back 10 years if you have a paid subscription. There's another couple of things that I like here. One is their peers. You can see who the peers are to Texas Instruments. You can also find articles and analysis written by others on these particular stocks, and they'll have them either rated buy or sell or hold. You can see here's a hold that was back on August the 29th. But most of them look like buys. So you can go in and read the analysis that's done. So now, last but not least, is a free app that I use. It's called QUARTR, QUARTR, without the E. And it basically, you can load your companies in here that you're interested in, whether you're a share owner or whether they're on your watch list. And what it will do is it will show you what events have happened earlier. So you can see that they've had earnings events for Chevron, AbbVie. On the 27th was Apple, Altria, Stanley Black & Decker, T. Rowe Price. So you can go back, as far as it'll go. But then you can also look forward. You can see all upcoming events, and you can see that Aflac, WEC, Franklin Resources all report on the 1st. And the cool thing is that not only does it tell you that, but it will actually allow you to not only see the earnings release, but also listen to the earnings call. So let's pull up Texas Instruments here. I'm going to hit pause there, but you can see it says 2 docs here in the bottom left. And if I pull that up, there's an earnings report. So you can see the actual earnings release by Texas Instruments. And then it also has a transcript of the earnings call. When I hit play, you can actually hear the earnings call. You can speed the earnings call up to, 1.5, 2 times. It'll go really fast if you're a really fast listener. I typically will put it on 1.1. But then if you follow along in the transcript, it will actually highlight the sentence that it's on as it gets there. So that is a really cool feature to have as well. And again, this is a free app. So if you're not using this, I would highly recommend it. It doesn't cost you anything. Just download the app on your smartphone, and it works great for me. Moving on to the portfolio update for October the 28th. What an exciting week. The portfolio went up 4.6%. you can see that the dividend income account, which is my high dividend yield portfolio, went up 5.6%, while the dividend growth portfolio went up 4.1%. The dividend snowball account didn't fare so well. I mean, Microsoft, Google, and Starbucks, all three had rough weeks, but it was offset a bit by the performance of SCHD and SOXX. So they did have a gain on the week of 1.7%. So again, overall for the week, 4.6% versus the S&P 500 at 4%. I'll take that. That's a 0.6% return over the S&P 500. So when I look at year to date, this week was so good that it basically cut our losses in half. So if you look at the overall for the year to date, we are down 4.5%. The S&P's down 18.7%. So when I look at this on a total return basis, when I factor in the dividends and options that I've had in this account, we are down 1.6% year to date. You can see that in the dividend income account, total return is up 3.7% year to date. I'm not expecting more weeks like this in the future, but this was a great week for the portfolio. Just a quick update on the options account that we started a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now. You can see that I had 2 open options this week. One that expired on 10/28, that expired worthless. And then I bought another one that's going to expire on 11/4. That's obviously still going. The strike price is $150. So when I look at the balance on 10/28, it's $33,041.26. We started the month out with $32,464. So we've had some nice gains each week on an annualized basis. Cumulatively, we're looking at like a 25% return so far. So hopefully that'll keep up. Now this next week, I'm going to leave this Texas Instruments out there, but I'm not going to be making any transactions in this account for probably the next 3 weeks. And that is because I will be on a trip that I'll tell you about here at the end of the video. So I hope you found that helpful. One thing I'll point out is that tomorrow, we are leaving on a trip to Israel, and so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to try my best to get a video done that we'll post next weekend, but if I don't quite make it, you may not hear from me for a couple of weeks. Hopefully I'll get something for next week, but it'll probably be more like the middle of November before I get to post another video. But if I do get to post a video, it's going to discuss the key information that I look for when I'm researching stocks. I think that'll be a fun video. I think it'll be good information for you guys as well. So if you stuck around this far, please like and share this video with your friends. I would really appreciate that. It would help me with the channel. And with that being said, I will see you on the next video.